Hello everybody and welcome. I'm Jan and with me today I have Mark. So we're here to look at our new offering with the very simple name ForNAV Customizable Report Pack for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central Cloud on AppSource. Luckily, the solution is not as complicated as the name. So if you already know ForNAV, you might find things in this presentation that you already know. But we actually believe that's a very good thing, as we have been able to keep exactly the same designer experience as you know from our on-premise solution, except for very few things that work slightly differently in BC Cloud. And the report pack is also the same, and it's our intention to make sure that it will stay the same moving forward, both in our on-prem and our BC Cloud solution. And should you be new to ForNAV, just lean back and enjoy. So why did we do this? We got some feedback from partners who told us that projects where you even had to do simple report modifications. Mark, can you go back, please? I'm not there yet, thanks. And even simple report modifications have been offered at several thousand euros simply because of the time it will take. Partners also told us about limitations using Word reporting. And then we have added features to our BC Cloud offering that are impossible or at least very complicated to do in the cloud version of BC today. Example of this is barcodes and customized fonts that we will come back to. So our current offering, as you see here, is the converter, where you can convert from Classic, you can convert RDLC reports, and now with the most recent version, you can even convert from text to AL and extensions. We have our designer tool and we have our standard reports. And this also goes for our BC offering. So basically what we have in the BC offering is our set of standard reports on AppSource and the option to customize these using our designer tool. And for those of you who know our current solution, what we basically did is we replaced our local DLL with a service on Azure. I know it sounds very simple. It is not really that, but let's come back to that. So moving on to the next slide, we also support all the scenarios that are available from Microsoft. So that's C-side or text and FOB files on-prem and in private cloud. And it is extension across all the offerings, including, of course, the Microsoft Service Clouds. So let's look at how this works on the next slide. So when you have your Business Central, and then the next one, you have AppSource, where you can simply download the ForNAV app, including our standard reports, as I mentioned. Now this will run in your BC tenant, as we will show you in just a few seconds. And then you have the option to basically also import, like I mentioned, converted Classic or RDLC reports, or you may even build new reports through Visual Studio Code. And if you want to modify your reports, you simply open the designer tool, you work with the report, you can even do a preview, and when you're happy with the result, you simply save the report back into your BC tenant. So that's really how simple it is. But let's see how this works in real life. So with that, over to you, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Jan, and good morning, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. And today I'm going to talk you through the complete process of installing ForNAV from AppSource, doing all of the settings, replacing the reports, and starting to design and make a few changes to the first report. So let's start with the first step. We're going to install ForNAV from AppSource. There's actually two ways of doing this. I'm going to show you the way that I did it. My colleague Jan found another way of doing it. There's probably maybe even a third way, but let's do it in the way that we prepared for today. Let's go to Business Central, and from Business Central, I'm going into Setup and Extensions. I'm going to select Extensions, and then I'm going to the Extension Marketplace. And in the extension marketplace, I'm going to search, of course, for ForNAV, and I'm going to select the free trial. This brings me back to Business Central, and I'm going to install our extension. And very quickly, because I've already practiced this before, and the extension should be installed in just a minute. So let's look at the deployment status to check if the extension is already there. It currently says in progress. So let's hope that the demo gods are nice to us today. So you can see that now when I'm back into my extension page, that the ForNAV Customizable Report Pack is installed. So from this point, there's a couple of ways to move forward. The easiest way is to go through the assisted setup. In the assisted setup, I can start the ForNAV setup wizard that I'm going to show you in a minute. Alternatively, you can also go directly into the setup page, or if you don't do any of those two options, you will be reminded to set up ForNAV if you print any report in Business Central. So let's go into the assisted setup, and I'm going to start the setup experience, and this is going to take me to the wizard. It says that the ForNAV report package contains a couple of documents that are optimized to work with the designer. And let's see what we can do from a setup perspective. The first two options that I have to select is I can print a payment note and I can print legal conditions. Both are optional. If you don't want to print them, you can just leave these two fields empty. But I can print something like, please pay via PayPal, or else I will be sad. Then we have in Europe the option to select how we want to print VAT. If you are familiar with the default Business Central sales invoice, you will know that it always prints VAT details, but a lot of people find that very overwhelming. If you only have one VAT percentage, then it still prints VAT details. And by default, we only print VAT if you have multiple VAT percentages. Then you can import watermarks and logos. I'll get back to that in a minute. And the next two options are replacing report selections and creating the ForNAV web services. If you select the replace report selections options, we will replace the standard Business Central document reports with the ones that we ship with ForNAV. We ship sales, purchase, and reminder reports. If you only want to select to replace a few, then you have to go in and do this manually. The ForNAV web services are designed to connect your Business Central to our designer. We have two of them, and I'll show you in a minute where you can find them in case you have to do some basic troubleshooting. That's it. After this, we can select Finish, and this will get us ready to start working with ForNAV. So let's go back to the PowerPoint and let's repeat the steps that we just did. First, we started the wizard, and then we said that we wanted to put in the payment note or the legal conditions. After that, we can select the way that we want to do VAT printing. This is only important in Europe. If you have a North American tenant, this option will not show. And you can select watermarks. The last option is to replace the standard Business Central reports and to activate the ForNAV web services. So please note, if you do not activate the ForNAV web services, that the designer experience will not work. And then we just simply click finish, and the assisted setup is finished. So the assisted setup allows us to quickly set up the report pack, but there's also a couple of setup options which are not in the wizard, and I just want to briefly explain to you how they work. And I promise to get back to the watermarks and the logos, and I also want to do that here. So let's go back to Business Central, and we'll go back to the Role Center. And from here we go into the ForNAV setup. If we expand the text tab, you can see that the values that we just put in using the wizard are now part of the ForNAV setup. But there's also a couple of other options that that we didn't see in the wizard. The first one is inherit language code. This option is, if it's set to true, it will print the invoice, for example, in German if you have German customers, and in Dutch if you have Dutch customers. If you do not want that, you should unselect this option, and then it will only print local invoices in your local language. So in this case, I have a Danish tenant, and it should print Danish invoices. And if it's outside of Denmark, it will print English. So this option allows you to print invoices outside of your local language. Then we have pre-printed paper. If you select pre-printed paper, we expect you to have paper that has printed logos on them, and we will not print the watermark and the logo when we print the invoice. We see a trend that this is becoming less and less of an option. A lot of startups and small companies actually have, they use blank paper, and they do a lot of e-invoicing, and actually if they want to print the invoice, they want to print the watermark and the logo on the invoice as well. Before we go into the logo stuff, let's go into process, and let's go into designing the sales template. We'll be spending some time in the sales template today, as this will be our report of choice to do today's demos. And if I design my sales template and I don't select the designer, but I just preview my report, you will see that the report already looks and feels very nice, but it doesn't print logos or watermarks yet. So let's see if we can make that look a little bit nicer. It actually prints the logo from the setup page, but this is not a logo that I want to send to my customers. Let's see if we can improve that experience. We're going to collapse this guy, and we're going to go in logo, and we're going to import a logo. And in this case, I'm going to select a vectorized logo, Cronus logo new. And let's also select a document watermark. We have example watermarks on our website. Of course, I have downloaded them from for today's webinar. But if you go to download watermark, it will take you to the ForNAV website, where you can find example report watermarks that you can use for demo purposes, or if you like them, you can also use them in real life scenarios. So let's go back to designing the sales template and preview what we have right now. And now you see it actually looks a lot more nice. We have the logo in color, and we have the watermark in color as well. You can see that it says please pay via PayPal, and the preview is just the payment note is behind my my page preview, but here behind this bar it says or else I will be sad. You can also see that currently it doesn't print the VAT details. If I want to print the VAT details, I simply select the VAT report type and set it to always. And if I now design the report again, it will actually show the VAT details always. But like I said, most customers don't want that. They only want to show that if there's multiple percentages of VAT on the invoice. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. And the setup options that we just discussed is inheriting the language code if you want to print languages outside of your local language and English. The use of pre-printed paper, the VAT printing, the payment note and the legal conditions, and supporting the logo. Let's move on to the web services. It's important to know that they are there. They don't expose any data in the database. They just expose some metadata that we need for printing or designing the reports. And the way to find them in Business Central is by searching for web services. And in my web services page, I can place a filter. And if I filter the list by object ID, and I filter from 6 million to more, it finds the web services that we need for ForNAV. If these two guys are not exposed, the designer experience will not work. The next thing to remember is that we replace the report selections for documents. Out of the box, we ship sales and purchase documents, and from those we print quotes, order confirmations, sales shipments, invoices, and credit memos. From a finance perspective, we allow you to print reminders, finance charge memos, and we allow you to print bank checks. To find which reports are replaced in my Business Central tenant, I go into report selections, and I can check between sales, purchase, or I can show all to find more. But let's focus on sales for now. And here we can say that we have the usage of quote, and we have the report ID 6 million. So it's important to remember, just like with the web services, anything related to ForNAV starts with 6 million. And if you haven't replaced the report selections, this will probably show something like 204. But it can also show something in the trend of 50,000. And if you have something like 50,000, then your partner has probably created a special report for you. And you might want to talk to the partner to have that report done in ForNAV. Besides documents, we also replace a number of other out-of-the-box Business Central reports, and we do that with replace standard reports option. In Business Central, you can find them by searching for the word replace. And if you open this screen for the first time, and in your case, it might be empty, let's make it empty. We have the option of clicking on process, and here I can click the option replace report selections. This will search in your database for reports which are currently enabled, and it will replace those which are optimized for ForNAV with the ones that we ship out of the box. If you want to run a test and see if it actually works, you can actually go into process and run a test, and then it should actually show the ForNAV equivalent. And ForNAV reports are always easy to recognize because ForNAV reports always have the design flag, so you can start the design experience directly from the Windows, the web client. After installing Another option that we have to remember is to work with checks. Checks are typically more important in North America than they are in Europe. But we do ship checks with every install of our report pack. So if you want to use them for any other purposes, then you're welcome to do that. The check setup can be found by searching for the word check, and you can find the ForNAV check setup. And here you can choose the most popular options like check, stop, 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 stop checks, or even the more modern options like 3 checks or top check with 1 stop. Depending on the option that you will choose, the number of stop lines will also change. And here you have the option to also import a watermark, but this is more for demo purposes. If you demo the product to a customer and you don't want your check preview to look funny. But you can also import a signature file name, and this will actually print the signature on the check if you like that option. Then we have the security. If you install the product from AppSource, you will find 3 roles in your system: a user role, an administrator role, and a design role. By default, we will assign those roles automatically to people who are admin in Business Central. If I go into permission sets, and in the permission sets, I go into filter, and I filter the list by asterisk ForNAV. And for some reason, it doesn't want to do that for me right now. But in case this works, you get a list. Pardon. You get a list of roles. We have the ForNAV core runtime. This role is important if you want to design reports. This role allows you to store the report selections back into the database. Then we have the ForNAV administrator, and the ForNAV administrator role allows you to do the setup. And the ForNAV user role allows you to read the setup data from the database, but it doesn't allow you to change the setup data in the database. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to start using the designer from Business Central. And the first thing that we have to do is we have to install the designer on a Windows system. To do that, we have to go to the ForNAV website. And in the ForNAV website, we have to go to the download page. And in the download page, we select the converter and designer. Here we populate our name, our email address, our country, and our company name. And then we download the current version of the product, which I have already prepared for today. So I can start the installation right from my local system. And the option to choose in this case, if you run Business Central, is to select development, because this is what we want to do. We just want to start developing reports. We don't have to do deployment because that's hosted by Microsoft. We have that running for you on Azure. So that's not a valid option if you use Business Central in the cloud. So let's install the product and automatically close the open applications. And this should install fairly quickly, also because I've already installed it before on this system. And now the designer is installed, and we can start designing reports. So we select development, and then we select install, and that's all we have to do to start working with the designer. So designing a report from Business Central every report that you run that has ForNAV in the background has the design option. So to start with the designer, you have to select design, and then you have to say either print or preview. After that, you get a message that it opens the report in the ForNAV designer, and depending on the browser you are using, this screenshot is from Edge, it opens a file that has the .fornav design extension. The .fornav design extension is connected to our designer, and after you have opened that file, it will open the designer and it will ask you to connect to your Business Central tenant. This uses Azure Active Directory, and it will automatically connect the designer to the tenant. And all you have to do is set a password. So let's see if we can make that work. And let's go back to Business Central, and we'll go back to the ForNAV setup. And we'll select Design Sales Template, and instead of Preview, we'll now say Design and then Preview. And this will show the message, and I open my report. And this will open the ForNAV designer, which I just installed. And after opening the designer, it will try to connect to my Business Central, and I have to type in my password. And now I am good to go to start designing reports. So let's see if we can make a couple of popular changes, things that people ask typically when they start working with the product. A typical question that people want is they say, oh, in my envelopes, the addresses are in the reverse order. So you can clearly see that on the left, we have the bill to address, and on the right, we have the company address. And we can simply reverse those two fields. You can see that the pink lines indicate that the report, that the controls try to glue each other to other controls. All of the ForNAV reports are nicely designed with having controls which are exactly aligned in the report, so the snapping will work pretty nice. And another question that people ask a lot is, I want to change the font of my report. So we can actually select multiple controls at the same time by pressing the Control key and selecting multiple controls. And now I want to change the font from Sego UI to, let's select Algerian. Let's make the font a little bit bigger. And let's say that we want to print it in pink. Everybody looks pretty in pink. Another typical request from people is to add a barcode. So let's see if we can make that work. We'll use the field list from the designer. I'll get back to that in more detail in a minute. But we're going to find the sales invoice number, and we're going to drag that into the report. Again, you can see that the glue starts working. And before releasing my mouse button, I'm going to select my Control and my Shift key. And now if I release it, it says, do you want to drop this as a text box, a caption, a heading, a picture box, or a barcode? And I'll select barcode, and now it automatically converts into a barcode. And you see that on top of my barcode, I have this little arrow guy, and this arrow is allowing me to change the most popular options in the report. You can see that I have my source expression, which is header.number, and the symbology of the barcode is code 128. We ship out of the box every popular barcode that exists. Right, but let's now just leave it at 128. So let's say I'm happy with those changes, but just to be sure, I want to preview if everything is okay. I'm going to hit preview. And now I should get a preview of my report with the first invoice from my database. So I hit preview, and then I get my sales invoice with a barcode and a pink address, and the addresses are reversed, right? So let's say that this is a perfect invoice. Now I can just save the report in the database, and I can go back into Business Central. And if I design my sales template and I preview my sales template, I can see that it now stored the template in the database. Because we work with the templates, all of these changes are now inherited throughout the system. So let's see what a sales quote looks like. We're going into the outstanding sales quotes, and let's print the sales quote from this list. Again, a ForNAV report showing by the design option. And if I preview my quote, you will see that it also prints the barcode on the quote. And if I go to my order confirmation, let's go into an outstanding sales order. You will see that it also shows this in the order confirmation. So this is a very powerful way of very quickly making changes to a report. So what we did is we opened the report in the designer. We connected the designer to the tenant by putting in our credentials. We moved the address from the left to the right. We changed the fonts of multiple controls. I showed you the barcode options that we have in the product. And we can actually preview the changes before we make changes to the database. And then those changes are inherited by all the reports which are connected to this particular template. So let's make it a little bit more complicated. Let's move to the next level. Let's see what we can do with using the field list and using the source expression. What if you want to add fields to the report that we don't put into the report by default? So let's go back to Business Central. Let's close this preview, and let's go back to the ForNAV setup. And design the template and preview the template. On the right of the screen, you can see we have the field list, and the field list actually shows several sources of information from Business Central. All of the reports that we ship with the report pack allow you to select the company information from the database. The company information has all the information from your company, like the phone number and the address and the VAT registration number. And we have the fields from the database, but we also have the field captions. And this will print the caption of the field in the language of the report that you are printing. But we also group popular fields together. So we have field groups for addresses, and this will automatically print the address in the right order. If you have extensions installed and extensions have added fields to tables in your database, those fields will also be showed automatically. We also have popular captions like the report name, page count. We have words like continued, copy, and etc., etc. Every report that we ship has the ForNAV setup fields. So all the fields that you have in the ForNAV setup also show in the report. If you want to add more fields, you're free to create a table extension to the ForNAV setup, and those fields will also automatically show up in every ForNAV report. And then we have the fields from the report itself. The report has a header, and it has lines, and it has VAT details. And if we open the header, we can see that just like with the company information, we have all the fields from the database, including fields from extensions. Actually, this is a Danish tenant, and in Danish, the EUBL fields are from an extension. They are not from the core table, and they show up in ForNAV as well. And we also have the captions and the field groups, like the build to address, ship to address, etc. And if I go into my line, I can see I also have something which is called field lookups. Field lookups is when you have those abbreviated fields like location code and areas. And here we actually look into the database and say, hey, which location is actually connected to this location code, or which job is connected to the sales line. And you can actually drag the job description or the posting group description directly into your sales invoice without having to write any line of code. Another thing which is important to know when you start working with ForNAV reports is how tables works and how to navigate through the report. The report is divided into several sections, starting with the header, and from the header we go down into lines header, trans headers, and lines body. ForNAV has full support for running totals. So if your invoice has multiple pages, each page can print the running totals, and the running totals are automatically kept in the report without the requirement of writing any line of code. If we go to the designer, there are two ways of designing and browsing through the report. Of course, you can click on a control, and right from the control, you can click on the little arrow to have the most popular design options, or if you want the more advanced design options, on the right, you have the property grid, and the property grid can be sorted by group or alphabetically. But we also have the Report Explorer, and the Report Explorer shows the same layout as the report, and it has a nice search Explorer capability that shows you that, oh, this is a line data item, and the line actually has a header, trans header, body, trans footer, and lines footer. And if I expand it, you can see that this actually has a table, and the table has one row, and in this one row we have the lines header. And this is actually a very easy way of navigating through the report. And you can actually see that all of these headers and tables are nicely aligned and show the same information in the report. So let's close the designer. And now I'm going to show you where your work is stored. Each time you save a ForNAV report, the result is stored in the custom report layout table. And this is also where you export the results and ship it to the production database. It's generally considered to be a best practice to avoid changing reports in a production environment. We highly recommend doing the changing of the reports in your Sandbox. And when you're happy with the results, you can ship the results from the Sandbox into the production system. You can find your report changes by going into the custom layout. Oh, pardon. Oops. I was too quick. Let's do that again. Let's search for custom layouts. And here in the custom layouts, you can see that I have changed my sales template several times. ForNAV will automatically pick the last change. And if you're happy with your change, from this list, you can export the layout to a file, and then in your production tenant you can import the layout back. And this also will avoid cluttering the list with too many previews. You don't want to end up with having 50 or 60 sales templates in your custom report layout list. So to go from Sandbox to production, you simply export the layout from the custom layout selection and you import it back into your production tenant. The last thing I wanted to show you today, before I hand it over back to Jan, is how to disconnect the template report if you want to do that. So let's say, for example, you want your sales quote and your sales order and sales invoice to all look the same, but you want your sales shipment document to look slightly different. If I want to do that, I have to go into my sales shipments. So let's search for the posted sales shipments. And I can't find them right here, so I'll just put them here. Posted sales shipments. And from here I go into print and I select my design option and I'm going to preview sales shipment. I'm hitting OK and open. And now you will see, hopefully, that all of the controls are yellow. And yellow means that I can't change them. If I try to select the bill to address and put it to the right, it will automatically go back to where it came from. If I want to change this behavior, I simply select the document header and I go into my master section property in the property window. And I right mouse click on my master section property and I hit reset. If I hit reset, the fields become editable and I can start changing the fields and I can start dragging in information from throughout the system. So this is what I wanted to show you today. This is not everything you can do with ForNAV. The product is much more comprehensive than this. We can work with JavaScript and you can create your own reports. But I think this is a very nice illustration on how to get started with designing ForNAV templates, ForNAV reports, without going into advanced coding options, without having to be a programmer. So with that, back to you, Jan.
Thanks, Mark. So you have the option to ask questions using the questions tool in the webinar. And while you think about if you have any questions, let me just talk a little bit about pricing. So basically, when you go to AppSource and you download our trial, it's a full version of ForNAV, and you can basically do all the things that Mark just demonstrated, of course, plus a lot more. There's no time limit on that free trial. What we do is that we write a watermark on the report saying this is a trial version. So if you can live with a watermark saying trial version on all your invoices, it's basically free. If you want to get rid of that watermark, you need a license. And our license model for ForNAV for Business Central Cloud, I will show the price here both in euro, and in just a second I'll show the price in US dollar. But basically you pay a price per user, which is €7 for the essentials or the premium users. If you pay monthly, you can also decide to pay yearly, then the price is €70, so you basically get 2 months for free. Same with team members, it's €1.4 per month or €14 per year. And if you want to upgrade reports from Classic, there is a one-time fee for doing that, and then the monthly fee is the same as mentioned above. Similar, if we move to the next one, we have the pricing in US dollar, but the structure is exactly the same. And this price includes everything. So it's the standard reports, it's the designer, and it's also the Azure consumption based on a fair usage model. What that means is that each user can actually print 3,000 pages every month included in this price. So you might wonder how you get started with this, because one thing is looking at this webinar again, which of course will be recorded and put on our website. But we have also made an agreement with a company called Red and Bundle, who are delivering training in ForNAV for Business Central. What they did is they developed a series of 5 webinars, 60 to 75 minutes each. You will be there in a smaller group, so there will be good options for asking questions and learning from each other. You will also have the option to ask questions between the webinars, and there will be some homework assignments that will be walked through in the following webinar, and you will get access to the full set of material. The 5 titles are, first of all, understanding the BC data model. That's sort of a prerequisite for understanding how to build reports if you are new to Business Central. Then there's the basic, the advanced, JavaScript deep dive, and a more developer-focused 5th webinar. The prices you can see is flexible, so you can either buy it per webinar at €50, or you can buy in blocks of 3, or you can buy all 5 webinars. If you go to redandbundle.com/ForNAV, there will be more information about this, and you can also write to René, who's driving this activity for Red and Bundle. What René will also offer is the option for fixed priced extensions. So that means if you want to build completely new reports, he can actually build the data set and the extension for you. So you only have to do the layout yourself. But again, there will be much more information about that on his website. So with that, if you want to read more about this, fornav.com/cloud, you will find all the information about Business Central for Cloud. On our YouTube channel, you will find this webinar either later today or tomorrow morning. And of course, you will find a lot of other webinars and videos telling you how to work primarily with the designer tool. So I don't see any questions so far, but we still have the option if somebody wants to ask a question. Mark, anything you want to add?
No, I just want to thank everybody for listening in and enjoy working with our product.
And so will I. No questions have appeared. So thank you everybody for joining today. And if you have any questions, please let us know. Thank you and have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.